Hey all, welcome to ST Skills System Design Session, weekly one. And today we are going to have our mock interview where we have Shri Prasad is the interviewer and Praveen as a brave heart who stepped in at the last minute and taking as a candidate role. So with this, I would give the control to Shri Prasad and Praveen. And before we start, Praveen, I think you can mention a little intro about you. So Shri Prasad could know what is your background and could be helpful during the mock interview process.
Good morning. This is Praveen Sukharu here. I've been in software world for last almost 15 to 20 years. I did my master's and then worked in Microsoft uh, for almost 10 years. I was one of the co-founders for the Bing platform. It's the search engine, and I have multiple patents on the search and uh, voice automation and customization, which is used in Siri and other technologies and Microsoft technologies. And also have some pricing and optimization patterns. And after that, I started working in T-Mobile on different levels, from front end to middleware to back end to um, all other applications. Uh, that's it from my side.
Hello, Praveen. My name is Sri Prasad. Thank you for stepping up today. I have around 8 years or 9 years of experience. I'm working at a startup here at SF. And uh, let's start the interview. Uh, so today we'll be designing a system for Yelp. So this is a system that already exists. That means you're not designing Yelp, but you're designing a feature for the Yelp. This feature allows users to download all their posts or comments on restaurants, their uploaded photos or videos that they have earlier posted uh, to their system, to their mail. So that's the main goal for this feature. Um, Yelp has around 200 million users and around 100K concurrent users. I'll let you decide what users should do for fetching their data, as in what APIs they should use and what format will they get their data. The data that they require are their check-ins, their reviews, their photos, or videos that they have uploaded. I can repeat. I didn't realize
Yeah.
you were typing. Yeah, I can repeat. Yeah, check-in, reviews, photos, or videos. And what was the first point?
It's a restroom, right?
I think download you were mentioning about something.
Download their restaurants, like
Oh,
comments on restaurants.
okay. So it's restaurant check-in. Okay.
Yeah, restaurants check-ins.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds
it need not be restaurants. There could be public places that they checked in. Uh, is all check-ins is what I'm trying to say.
okay. So what is the so it is just the customer will come and no, you said there are 200 million users, right?
Yeah.
So expectation is so the main scenario is customer wants to find when he goes to a location, automatically he should be alerted or he will search for a location.
Can you repeat that question once more? I didn't get
Will
it.
the user search for the location, or
No.
as if he has the app open, automatically the GPS will find the location and tell him that, hey, um, this is the review and this is the photos.
No, he'll be going to Yelp
Mhm.
application and he'll be saying, hey, give me all my data. That's it. So the previous check-ins, previous reviews, previous photos that he has uploaded, that's what you're going to download.
Okay, so he will search for that restaurant or location, and then he will get the reviews, right?
That will be for one restaurant, but he's wanting to get all the data.
Okay, got it.
So he's not looking for give me all the check-ins and reviews for one restaurant. He's asking to get all the data for his previous all check-ins and reviews and photos and videos.
All that he reviewed or all that anyone has reviewed?
No. All what he has reviewed.
Okay.
Data format, you can tell whatever format that you want to get the data and give it to the customer. I'll let you decide like whatever format.
Okay. Got it. So let me reiterate. The question is, as a Yelp user, I go to different places, and then once I go to different places, I review place or a location. So basically, the use case one is I will actually review the location, right? As a user, I will review the location. And second scenario is, as a user, I want to see what I reviewed, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So in this basically first scenario, right? And this will be as a, so this only I will be using and others can also see. So this one, as a user, I will review the location. This is more like a, I'm just going high level. This is like a post API. And this is more like a get API. And we'll go into the details later. And then assuming that there's a 200 million users here, we need to see that this will be what kind of throughput and latency and read to write traffics, right? So this looks like it is read heavy and write is not that heavy, right? So
Yeah,
because you will
you're
only,
telling.
yeah, it's write read heavy applications because since uh, since customer will only post it once
Yeah.
and only post once, but all users, 200 million users can see it. So that being said, we need to, we don't need consistency in terms of data, right? We need to store it in some database or some kind of storage system where we can get this ratings. In terms of storage, um, we can have two kinds. One is where we store the storage of the photos and videos,
Okay.
which we can have a CDN or something, content data network. And then second thing is all the metadata for that, like uh, how many stars, review data, like what is the um, star rating, and we can review the content like comments. And what else do I do? These are the only uh, three things we do, right?
Yeah, photos,
Have
videos,
that,
and rating and comments.
yeah, stating and comments, and this will be based in one place, and this will be one place. And when we are actually, we will actually aggregate all these and get it. So in terms of data, right, where we want to store the data and that level estimates, we can actually do that now itself. So considering, let's say, how much, let's say, data estimates, consider our payload, right? What we post and what we get. Let's assume this is a JSON payload that we'll send, and JSON payload, we will probably have it like content, and in the content we will have what can we have? We have a user ID, and then who is posting, and location, and what is that? When you're posting, the what is the public location ID, right?
Yeah, the check-in location.
Check-in location. This is the user location. This will have, this is the check-in location ID, and then comments and star rating, and then we have image slash video, and just as let's assume that this is 100 KB, 100 KB, and this user location will have this longitude, latitude, right? Which is the GPS coordinates, right? User location in GPS coordinates, and in the check-in location, this is an ID too. So let's call it 10 KB. I don't know what is the GUID or something. This will call it like let's give 5 MB. People give lots of this thing. Star rating, let's give it like 5 KB, and this maximum and image. Nowadays with all this high def videos and everything, people are becoming pros and giving lots of high resolution pictures and cameras, so we can maximum up to 50 MB, right?
I'm not sure, like video for 50 MB, but
Let's say 200 MB max.
Okay, that is your limit. Okay, and yeah, comment, I would say 1 MB. Like 5 MB is a lot of data for just text. It's just going to be text. So
yeah. Some people write a lot. If you see the Yelp. Okay, so let's add this, right? Approximately, it's a 200. Let's say on average, right? It's around 210 MB, right? So each payload is around.
So one question I have, this JSON data that you wrote is the data that is stored in the backend, or is this the data that you are sending it to the user?
Yeah, this is the send. This is initial post.
Okay.
Initial post request, right? So initial post. Let's say each payload. Let's say everything. Let me do a round figure. Like it's everything, right? 250 MB, including some other metadata we will use. So each payload is actually 250 is a lot, right? Yeah. Okay. Each payload, if it's 250 MB, and then you have let's estimate like how many users you have. 200 million users, right? So each user will actually give one out of 200 million. If they give one post, right? So then we have 200 million posts into 250 MB is how much? It's 500 500 GB, no, 500 GB, is that right? So it's assume it's 500 GB, that's a lot. Is it, sorry, 50 GB. So it's 50 GB per day. And then since the data has to be stored forever, or let's say data has to be stored for storage for 10 years at least. So then per day it is this thing. So 10 into per day, so 30 days into 12. So this will be the number of GB that we have to store. We need to get the storage required. It will be in terabytes or petabytes.
Yeah, I mean, this data is fine.
Okay.
More interested in the design on how you can download the data to the
Yeah.
user. This
So,
data is required. I agree with that.
yeah.
Like
So
without
this,
that, we won't know. Yeah.
so this is a JSON post. I'm not really prepared for estimates, and the JSON get will be there. So JSON get, your request will be a check-in ID, and then response response will be the comments, comma, star, comma, image slash video.
So when you say JSON get, I am assuming that this is going to be a synchronous request. Like the user comes in, he calls in get, and he'll get like all the check-ins, all the responses, like this
Yeah,
content directly. Is that
yeah.
correct?
So check-in has we'll have two methods for the get. One is get for get has two flavors, two uh, two versions. One is for a location check for a location check-in location ID, check-in location ID, and second is zip code. So if you give a check-in location ID, or I just need to check for this Gateway of India location, then that will only that will come. But if I say the check-in location for uh, like Silicon Valley or someplace like SFO downtown, then I'll get all the check-ins for that. And then inside, right, there may be some filters we can add, like
Uh,
it's
can I
like
interrupt you for a minute?
food or tourist or something, tourist locations or others or bar or
I wouldn't worry about like for one particular check-in location.
Mhm.
The question was to get for all the locations. So
Yeah,
this is an
then it,
extension. Very good. It's fine. But the question was for like all the check-in location for the given user.
yeah. Okay, okay. So I was just telling this thing, and then this is for in generic, anyone can get that. And then for just for my version, right? So for my version, it will be for a given user ID. We'll also have like no. So this is just a generic get.
Got
This
it.
is
Got it.
this is generic get for public, right? And then for uh, for a for a user, right? Not a user. For me as a poster of the Yelp, I need to have a my my post uh, review underscore get or something. So what this will do is based on this, you don't need to pass anything, right? It will just give you all the comments, all the comments, stars, everything in the chronological order of how I posted. This will uh,
So
return all my reviews in the order I order I posted. So this will contain comments, and actually, and when you're inside your logged in app, automatically this will actually take your user ID as input. So you don't need to pass in since you're already logged in.
If I am a very high profile Yelp user,
Mhm.
and I have lots of comments, lots of videos that I uploaded. Say in this case, you have assumed that I post only one post per day in
Yes.
your actual calculation, right? If I am a star Yelp user, for example, and I
Mhm.
post like more than 10 posts per day, which is contains high definition videos and things like that,
Mhm.
um, and then I come after 2 years and say, give me all the data. Do you think a HTTP GET request will fetch all the data and return as a response? If I
Uh,
say, give me all my user data?
if it's a more than 10 posts per day and you are coming back after 3 years.
Yeah, X number, more than 1 year basically. And
Yeah.
then I come and ask, hey, give me all my data. Do you think an HTTP request will be able to handle all this load and then return as a response a content? Would you think it would be um, it would be okay to use an HTTP GET request here at that point?
Yeah, I think it should be okay. We will actually have some page pagination or something. So we will paginate the query to make sure that we will at any point we will only return the 10 or 20 records.
Okay, what if I have more
If you have,
than
if you have hundreds of records, then you just have to do next, next, and then you'll get it. Or depending on the device, right? If your device is depend pagination depending on the device, right? If it's web page, then you can show up to 50, and if it's mobile, then you can show 10 or scrolling option, right? As you scroll, the data will be loaded.
what I'm trying to get is that if I have like say 20K users who are like posting and commenting and uploading every day, and then if somebody comes after that and gets all the record, I'm skeptical about the HTTP command that you can in one request you can get all the response and it won't time out, uh, even if you're doing pagination, because there is video data also, and that's probably streaming, and also all the comments and all the data, and it has to fetch all this data and return before the request times out. I'm a little bit skeptical on that, but let's carry on.
Yeah,
Just
maybe
want to point that out. Yeah.
maybe we can use WebSockets or something um, to actually persist the data, at least for this part, right? It is just for my post get, right? As a user, I just want to see what I posted in last. Um,
Sure. That is
so
correct.
yeah.
I was wondering if there's an alternative way so that there is not much load on the existing Yelp application, so that this doesn't affect the existing systems, because you're going to query all the user table, user post table, comments table, etc.
Yeah.
And if the data is too large, and if there is it's a prolific user, and there are more such users, more than say 20K users who are concurrently getting this request, I fear that the GET request will either time out, or it wouldn't be enough to handle such a load of requests that is coming in. Let's see if there is an alternative way.
Yeah. So
Otherwise,
what
let's
I would say, so basically, if there are some star users, right? Basically, there's always star posters and star users, and star users is like who post more than 10 posts per day. And if more users are actually consuming the data, or then we can actually all the posts that posted by that user, we can keep it in the hot cache memory, so
but
that
We
can be
don't know that
right.
that he'll come after 1 day or 2 days. He may come after 3 years. At which
Yes.
point you are just storing data, assuming that he might come in the hot cache.
Yeah.
Um,
If it's coming at a different point, then we can actually, yeah, that's, let me think about it.
sure.
What I was thinking was, eventually, if you like right forward and right backward, like a read ahead, what's the terminology? So I will check in the cache. If it's not there, I will get from the backend, or if it's already there, I'll read from the cache. So first time when I'm reading it from the cache, I don't see it. I know that this user is actively logged in and is looking for data and is scrolling. So as the request comes to that proxy, I will actually go back and get preemptively, I will get more data than what the customer asked, so that next time when he is doing the next 10 records, I have all the records. So first time it will take time, but not second time when he scrolls or is logged in, um, it will be easier for the application to pull all the data, and there won't be any delay. Or
Right.
as the user logged in, if it's a starred user, I will make sure that I pull all the data, at least uh, 25% of the data into hot cache, so that he can pull it. And if I see that customer is interested in that kind of data more, then I will preemptively pull the data. And if it's not, then I will actually expire the data in like
Right.
minutes.
That that is that is a good approach. The issue with what I'm seeing is that if the user logs in, you're
Hmm.
going to pull all the user data onto hot cache, which may not be necessary because you might be
Only for
logged in to
star
post
users.
something.
Only for star users,
Mhm.
I will pull the latest reviewed comments. The reason I will do this is basically sometimes you go back and review the edits. I put that as 5 star, but I think it's 4 star. I put that as 3 star, assuming that that is the issue, but they were having some issues that they
Yeah,
apologize.
that is a great point, but that is for editing an existing
I think,
reviewed comments.
yeah,
That is correct. But we want to download. We don't care about like whether he wants to edit a past review comment. If the feature were to design for editing recently posted comment, yes, you were right. We would pull that out. Even for a star user, if you start pulling in all the latest review comments, this design would be for getting all the images uploaded, star ratings that he has done, and comments. So latest one record may not fulfill our requirement. The other approach you might want to go ahead and think about is maybe it need not be a synchronous request. Maybe it can be an asynchronous one. Because you are getting your data, you need not put a load on existing system to be affected just for one user's getting all the data. That might be another approach that you might want to think about, but I'll let you go ahead.
can you repeat the last 10 seconds?
Yeah, I'm saying that you are trying to fetch all the user data that he has posted in the past X number of years. um, you might want to think about a view or a solution where you don't want to give this data synchronously. You might want to have an asynchronous process where you gather the data and then you share the data with the user in another format. The the approach or the angle behind this is that you don't force your existing application to be throttled by such requests. You can do it at a later point in time where you are doing it in a slow and asynchronous batch process way. But I'll let you think about it. It's just the way that I'm seeing with the get request. I
Mhm.
fear that if it is an asynchronous request, you might time out. There's a lot of data that even if
Yeah.
you say I'm going to pagine it and give, fetching all the data, converting it into a format that is user can consume, and then sending it to user. even if it is paginated, I fear that it might be an onerous load on the system.
Okay. Yeah. So what I will do is maybe when I do this get operation, right, I can ask whether you want to download as a like as in Excel, or a download as a a raw image or something. Sometimes you just want to download an image, download a video, or download all the content and image, right?
Yeah,
So we can
for
probably send that as a post request, or put that into a queue, and then once the data is ready, you will say that okay, the data is ready, and we can get everything out. So asynchronously you can get all that past information from the backend, whichever backend that we use. But I'm still thinking about it. I'll just I'll get to it. But on a so this is, I know I jumped from users, features, estimations, and let's go into like a little bit about high level design. I know we jumped into design, but I just want to go like
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. So in and there are some functional and non-functional requirements like high availability and all the things. So we want to make sure that non non-functional, I know there's so much I can talk. I can talk about this for days and days, but we just have to be in the time bound. In terms of availability, right? We have to make sure that these applications are always available, right? Always available, always available, and availability is always available, and consistency is 100%, right? Consistency is always available. Inconsistency will be eventual consistency.
Yeah, I was thinking how we managing both, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we want, so no one cares if you get one less review or something. It's not bank application, right? So eventually the data will be consistent. So even when this one, right, when I do a post of what I write, this can just go to a Kafka queue or some queues, right? Queue system, and eventually that will get posted. It will say that okay, you posted a request, and we will review it for our things. And once it doesn't have um, any like sensitive things, it will be posted. So it can just go to a queue, and then later on after review it will be posted. So eventual consistency is good. And in terms of CDN, push versus pull, we can actually make sure that during the post operation it is a it's a push request, and all this videos and images, we will actually only have the URLs in all our responses, and only when the customer clicks on it, we will actually be going to the CDN and get the data. So all our CDN, all our payloads will only use CDN links.
So you are going to store all the posts and videos and images, everything in the CDN, or
No,
CDN will have
only,
links to S3?
yeah, only the images and videos. So only images and videos will be in CDN, so that whoever is um, uh, actually requires it, only then we will go to S3 or Azure or somewhere and get the data back. Till that time, customer will say that okay, these are all the reviews. So only when he expands and clicks it, so we will probably have a preview image or something, but or we can or click here to see the video or image, only then we will actually show it. That is one way.
Yeah,
Second,
I mean,
we can have a thumbnails of each of the image and videos that we can store it in the regular NoSQL database, or any of the database which is good for all these kind of processing. And so thumbnails we can keep in the in the immediate scrolls, and only when you click on it, it will go to the CDN. So that way we can actually save the space in the where we are actually storing it, and also we can use the CDN to make sure that each wherever based on the geographic location of the users, he can we can send the data there, and then customer can actually open it.
Right. That's fine for showing the data for when a person opens up Yelp.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to download the data. This is fine when we join Yelp and you want to fetch the data from CDN images and videos and
Mm-hmm.
then render it immediately. We are trying to design so that the user logs in and he says, "Hey, give me all the data,"
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then you would be okay to pull the CDN links that was recently viewed, maybe, but you want a way to fetch all those data that he has previously checked in. So that's the main goal.
So when he says all the data, means all the data he wants to see it in his like
No,
my Yelp reviews, right?
all the data for the previous check-ins, various videos that he has uploaded, all the previous posts that he has commented on, that is the data that we're trying.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what this we will get this get my post review, right? So we'll get all the data back. But you want to say that if he has like 10 per day and 30 for 30 days 300 posts, and then for a year it's around into 12, right? So that's so those that number of posts or 1,000 posts you want to get in one call. I know definitely the HTTP would not perform well for all the posts with the data, correct?
Yes,
So
I don't think it will
I
support
don't think that
the
will
data.
be a work. And what is the so I need to ask one more question. What is the usage of the data? How will the data be used by the user who is actually looking at the getting all this data in? Does he
That is
want to do any operation, or he just wants to
No,
view
that
it?
is that is orthogonal to this question, right? Like what the user does with the data, that's orthogonal. Like what we're trying to get is to get the data to the user, and user is an individual entity, like a normal user who gets all the data. What he's doing with his own reviews or comments, that is orthogonal to our design. He can use the data in whatever way that he wants. The system should be able to uh, uh, allow him to download all the data that he has posted, uploaded, commented for the check-ins that he has done in the previous year.
Oh, when you
You
said download it, should it be part like a zip file or something that he can get everything?
That's a good question. Yes, it can be.
Okay, if that is the case, right, we can just have another API like get all my data or something, right?
I just
Supposing you
want
are
to
leaving a platform, right? I want to
Sure.
make sure that I'm leaving a blog post or platform. I want to get all the data that I stored into a format that I can push that to some other platform. So this one, right? So this will actually have a user ID or something, and then this will actually create a this request will go to a asynchronous process, which will actually like a queue, and which will get all the which will send it to the queue, and then there will be probably a queue processor or something, another API, which will actually gather based on my another API to read from the queue, which will at later point in time will process all the we'll go through all the user IDs, all the reviews for that particular user ID, and aggregate all the images and videos from CDN and everything, and read from all the queue, add the user data, and then what it will do is it will create a zip file, and then it will post this back to the queue.
Yeah,
And when the
this is more like the design that I was looking for. Can you
Okay.
expand this on the actual design part? And let's talk about quickly. We have less than 10 minutes, but let's see if we can see what are the bottlenecks that can happen.
Okay. So basically, okay, I could have come here. So basically, asynchronous queues, right? So we have different kinds of queues that we can use. So from a request perspective, you will just have one like get what I said, get get all my data, right? That's the only request that goes to the queue. But from an API that reads, right? So this has to go through all the different backend systems. Like for example, in our case, we have like um, we may have some HBase or MongoDB or some other Cassandra, right? Somewhere where we have data. So some XYZ database where we have all the reviews, and then it has to aggregate that with CDN. So this microservice has to add both the data, both the data from mm, CDN, and
So
uh,
why are we going to CDN again? Like we
because
CDN only has the URL to S3 buckets, right? Why are we going to CDN to fetch the S3 buckets? Don't we have a direct knowledge of the S3 buckets, or we're not storing it anywhere?
we are not storing it. Oh, actually, we could store it, or we if we already know the URLs, right? Then we don't need to go to CDN. We can directly get it from the S3 or AWS, since we already have the URL. So but even then, to get the actual data and package it in the form of a zip file, we have to get the data from S3, right? So we may have to from Mongo or uh, Cassandra 2 plus S3, right? And then we have to package this to zip file, and then we need to return this data back to the customer, the user.
Right, right. And my point is there are multiple points that this can go wrong. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, can we discuss a little bit more about
yeah.
that?
Let me do that. I haven't used my pen at all. So basically, we have this is the uh, let's say this is the queue, and this is the user, right? User is publishing some to the queue, and then in the queue there's a queue processor which will process, and this is the one API that will be here, and this API will actually aggregate and fetch the data from S3 and also from the
So what is the user can first of all, user can directly access the queue from outside, or would he go through
no
some
no
kind
no
of
I,
API?
oh I didn't, yeah. User user will actually user will send that to a proxy, right? User will send that to a proxy or application. What do you call that? I'm blanking. User will send that to a
Let's call an API server that it sends a
API
request to.
server. Yeah, API server. From API server, it will go to an internal server. So from there, it will come to the queue. So for us, this is like a we'll call it like a APG proxy or something. Inside APG proxy, we have APG proxy will send that to queue, and from the
So
queue, we will actually
hold
there
on, hold on,
is a
hold on. One second, one second. When you say when you're going to a queue, is this queue partitioned by anything, or like it's just dumping into one queue?
this queue is partitioned based on topics, different topics. So each topic, like supposing this may be a queue to get all the information for get all my data, right? So in this scenarios, we'll be having a topic where if
So by
any
API, are you saying by API? Because I get all my data as an API.
yeah, get API, right? So based on API, like if anything, a data that comes from this API request, then just put it in this queue. If anything data you get for any post reviews, then uh,
Okay.
we put it in a different queue. And
Okay.
this API will actually um, will try to read from the queues based on the topic consumer
Okay.
that is subscribed to.
Hold on, hold on. If you send a request to an API server which passes to the queue, the user still waiting for the response. He has not got any response. So can you tell me at what point he's going to get a response? Is he going to respond like immediately after he gets hits the API server, or after the request point puts into a queue? Because if you put into a queue, that for me.
Immediately, yeah. So anytime when we have queues, right? We will send immediately a response to the customer that we are working on the data, and once your data is ready, it will show up on the screen, or you can able to download. So immediately once it's a queue, right? So it's always 200, because 99% is 200, because the moment you
Sure.
send request, right, okay, get all my data, thank you for your request, and we are processing your data, and till that time we can show some image, or or come back to this page or refresh it, your data will be available. So
Okay.
in the back end we will actually do all this hard working of going
Okay.
through all the multiple layers and getting
Okay.
the data.
Okay. I still have a doubt for that, because when you send it a request and you're saying that please come here after some time, is he going to keep on refreshing? But let's come back to that later.
Mhm.
Once you put the request into the queue, and then it gets to the API, and now what happens?
So once it comes to the API will this microservice will actually go to different locations and get the data.
Okay,
If
hold
it's
on,
an
hold on.
aggregated view of all the things, then it will use that aggregated view to gather the information and return it back. If it
Okay,
doesn't have an aggregated view, then it will actually create the aggregated view and compile it in one form and return it back.
okay, hold on. We have jumped a few hops, which is fine. The request that the user sent only contains the user ID. Like
Yes.
that's what you in the request. So what comes out of the queue is actually a JSON which just contains the user ID. How
Yes.
will the API know which S3 location to go or what comments to pull just from that user ID?
Okay. So I know they jumped a little bit, but based on the user, right? We may have another a database called with the user profile, right? So based on that, API will call the user profile database, um, user user profile database or something, um, user profile DB, which will actually contains that, okay, you have this user ID one, and his data is user ID one, and location is one, or East, AWS East or something. AWS East, and location is that. So based on that, he can go to different thing. And if the data is all federated, or no, if the data is all sharded, it will also have the which shard the information is available, and the API can directly go there and get that information from that shard.
So what is that information it gets from the database? Is it like
It's
all the comments that you get
metadata.
got there? What,
It-
pardon me?
It's just the metadata information of where his information resides. So maybe we may need another API or something to actually pull it to from the actual sharding location, sharded
So
data.
uh, an API, once it gets from the queue, the reason why I'm emphasizing here is that I feel that API is doing too much of things. Here, from what I'm seeing, API pulls data from user profile, API calls S3, API calls another service, API
Yeah,
gets the data from S3, API gets the data from other service, and then API converts it into a zip file, and API then puts back it into the queue. This is too much of emphasis on that one API,
yeah.
which is why I'm fearing it's not going to scale up.
Okay. Queue, and then from queue it will come to API, which will actually this API will call another API, right? API will get the user info, and then once the user info is there, it will pass to the API, like API for getting data, and then once it gets the data, it will return back to the either it can return back to the queue and there'll be another API, or it will get the data and return directly to the client. So this is this first API, right? I think I'm not I should have put somewhere where I can draw boxes. Okay, I should have done
Just a time reminder, like we can take another 5 minutes since we started late.
that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, so yeah, so client will write, client here is that user will actually call the proxy to the queue, and the queue will get the request of user ID, and this API will actually call that just the user info. So this will be a lightweight information of like metadata only, and this API is the one that gets the data from that all the backends, and then this one will return back to the client.
So, okay, so you're telling the API user info will get the user ID from the queue. From the queue with the user ID, how would it get, what would it pass to the API, the next API getting data one?
Yeah. So this API fetch, this is called let's like fetch data, right? This fetch data is the one that will go to that connects to that
Yeah.
sharded
Uh,
system to get
Hold
the.
on, hold on. What I'm missing here is the first API, which is the user info, will get a user ID from the queue.
Yes.
What information would that first API, which is the user info, pass on to the next API server?
Oh, okay, okay, got it. So the next API, right? So this will only give that S3 location. It will tell you user ID, S3 location, and what is the request and what is the response. So the request for that API getting data will be only the user ID, where is what is the get all the data for that user, what is the format, download format, whether it's a zip file or just stream back, whatever it is, and what are the yeah, that is the request, and internally this API will go into the database, or maybe this API info will also have the database of which where exactly the metadata for the data is located, and so this API will only get the information from that backend database to get all the information. So
Okay.
this plan will
So
go to this, yeah.
here's my concern. First API will get the user ID. I'm
Mhm.
assuming there is a database backing the first API server, which gets the user information.
Yeah.
And the user information, I would assume that you are telling not only S3, but the comments and other things as well,
Mhm.
comments and posts and answers and questions as well. And that, from what I understood, you're passing it to the second API. Okay.
Yes.
Second API is stateless. You get the data, you call S3, you call the comments table and whatnot. What
Mhm.
happens if that second API just fails after it retrieves the data?
Second
You,
data is
yeah, the gather data service. What happens if it just passes because it's not storing any information? It's just getting the data and calling multiple services. If
mhm.
that getting data server fails, then you have no way to get the data, aggregate the data to return to the user. And
No,
what happens if a call to S3 fails? There is would you have a way to fetch the data, or would you want to go
yeah,
even
yeah, we
S3 if
yeah
it
we
doesn't
will
exist?
be yeah, we should have some polling mechanism or a retry mechanism when if something is not working, or we'll probably try to have a retry mechanism to make sure that if within a certain amount of time, the API, the user info that passes to API, it doesn't get the information back to the client, because the client also will be probably there another queue, um, another API which will actually return that, which will be maybe all the information that we got instead of directly sending it to the client, we will be send that to a queue which will actually be waiting for the response from the API get data. And if the API get data does not respond within certain time, we need to actually resend the info from the queue, saying that we should not dequeue it, but check to see that if that information is there or not. Or other way to do it is we can actually have a metadata um, in the metadata table, or running log, to see that these are the requests and responses, and if this response is after successfully updating the get data, we will update that metadata saying that the request is successfully delivered. If not, we can uh, retry that information again. So we'll have a um, another queue somewhere, or another tracking table which will track all the requests and responses and statuses, so that we can audit, like, in this day how many users in this
Correct. That's
respond.
fine. So two other things is that API getting data aggregation server, that I feel is doing too much of data, too much of job. Like it's like fetching the data, aggregating the data, zipping into a file, updating the metadata or tracking service, and then returning it back to the user. If that aggregation data fails at any step, then you would probably have to do entire thing again, because you have no way of identifying like which step failed. You're going to fetch the data, say S3 data, or you're getting the comments data. Would you be able to, like, for example, if the zip step failed,
Mhm.
uh, would you feel like you have to fetch all the data again once more, aggregate all the data once more, because the zip step failed? Or is there another way that we can maybe push the data somewhere else and have another service do the aggregation collecting part? The reason why I'm saying is that now your load primarily falls on getting data server, like the aggregation server, for all the requests that is coming in. And if you have like maybe a lot of users who are like even a same user who's repeatedly requesting every 1 second by a bot or something, this is going to put a lot of load on the API gathering data aggregation server.
Yeah,
Um,
I was thinking like we could get the data into some memcache or something. So if even if the data fails, it will be in the hot cache to retry. At least in the gathering services, we can have uh, a way so that we don't have to get all the data from it, like 3 years of data. Then we don't need to get all the data from all the servers and again. And we have to, yeah, that's a good point, that we have to make sure that at all points, that data can fail, right?
but
Data,
why memcache? Like, why do you want to put it in a cache here? And he's not waiting. The user is not waiting for the data.
yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking some cache or some place, right? If the data fails at the, that's just one way. Um,
Time to wrap up, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
okay. So in terms of overall, um, my design, I know there's many things that I didn't go into detail. I didn't draw the diagrams well, but in terms of getting the users data, I I think I didn't do the justification of clearly
Uh,
doing the design.
no. I
Uh,
mean, this would work. It's not like it wouldn't work and all. This would
yeah, it's
definitely
like
work.
it's not there's lots of points of failure. That's a good point that you brought out. If it's a real design, then I will be actually breaking down the getting data services, and actually I may have some more components there to monitor, to make sure that the data is if at any point the data, at least, if the user info is failed, we can retry, or if if you can fail fast and fail fast and move forward, right? Fail fast and retry. So we don't have to retry the whole process, but whichever process is failed, we can actually retry that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, given that you just volunteered and you just took up this question ad hoc, like you did a good job of identifying the different components and drawing it out. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
Thank. Yeah. Sri
uh,
Prasad, I think you can give your feedback a little later.
yeah,
So thanks, Praveen, for stepping it up.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, thanks,
I think,
Prasad. I really liked your questions. I know I sometimes gloss over things, and you were trying to pull me back to getting to concentrate on one area, which is I really like your persistence in getting the answer out. Uh, I was trying to jump into different sections of. I wanted to talk about asynchronous, synchronous cache, and
yeah, that's okay.
right,
Yeah.
right forward and traffic. Yeah.
So I don't know, like last week actually, Alex gave one suggestion, like while the candidate is doing the mock interview, like if others get time, try to put your own block diagrams. Has anyone got a chance to do that? If not, like we can get started with the feedback discussion and how we could have done better.
Yeah, that is a must. I need to know. I know I didn't do well, I know. To the point that I expect others to do. When I ask others, they do much better than what I do myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's not
Yeah,
about
Nazir is trying to say something. So,
Yeah,
uh,
what about if we, do a first aggregate request at return, S3 location to the user, then in the second request from the client uh, to send a different server which takes the S3 location and tries to download that.
I didn't understand the question. So, I don't know if Praveen and Sriprasad understood.
No,
So,
I think I didn't understand the question.
so what was your point, like Nazir?
What if
What?
we, uh, on the first request, to return the, the comments and not the actual video, but
Mhm.
the S3 location only. Then with that S3 location, hit a different server to fetch that video or image.
Oh, you're trying to give a suggestion on how it can be done. Um,
Yeah.
in the first request, you are suggesting to get only like non-video or photos, like just the comments, and another request.
Yeah. Then
Yeah,
another question with that S3 location, get the video or that
yeah. I
the
think,
image.
yeah, from the user experience, I don't know how it stands, but like, yeah, that's another way to look at it. Um,
Like you said, first get the images
no,
and
I
No, I think he wants to give all the images and videos separately, all the comments
mm,
separately, so that
mm, mhm.
the request you can get only the images first, and then only the videos second, and
So
then
you can get the thumbnail of the video first. Then on clicking video, you can stream that or download that. With that video, you can attach a S3 location where you can download that video. Right?
Oh, okay. I think he's talking about the kind of timeline kind of view first, and then like do another set of download. But like I think this is just he wants like all data at first. He's not like viewing on the website. I think your
yeah,
point is more on viewing on the Yelp website, how you show to the user. This is not that use case. This is actually he just want to download. He's just
Then
clicking the download button and what happens there.
right,
Mm,
fine, fine. So yeah, that way we can also take the aggregation, the text data and return that back, while the async call happens on the back with the S3 location on the different server, and which actually downloads the data back. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's
can
see. I
be
think
done friendly.
Alex. Yeah, Alex was trying to say something. I want to give it to Alex so that he can speak.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question for Sri Prasad. Something is not quite clear to me. You mentioned 100,000 concurrent users, right?
Yeah, that is using the Yelp application.
And is specifically using this new feature.
No, I just said 100K users. That's it.
Okay, cool.
Specifically these users.
Right. Can I give my feedback? It's very short.
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, my feedback is quite simple. My recommendation for Praveen is every time you face a system design problem or a task, focus entirely on asking questions until you can really understand the problem you have to solve. Uh, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, it doesn't really matter, but you can't solve a problem if you don't understand what problem you have to solve. A second point, you made a curious comment at the end. You told something like, if this were a real system, I would be breaking it down into smaller problems, adding more components. Well, this is a real system. Even though it's a mock interview or an interview, you are supposed to design a real system. So you should have broken down the system into smaller super problems since the beginning. So, and you could do that by asking questions, lots of them. I mean, really try to understand what is the main problem behind the system that you are going to design. And then you could have avoided all the mess that was this interview. It was quite fun to watch, see the discussions going on, Sri Prasad trying to help you. But in a real interview, I think that's not going to happen. You are not going to get so many hints, so many advices, so many help from the interviewer. So you know how it's going to end, and that's pretty much all.
Any feedback
Yeah.
from me as well?
The only feedback, okay, for me it was quite challenging to understand the problem. I mean, you speak quite fast, and English is not my language, so I was a little bit lost at the beginning. I asked a few questions in the chat because it was not quite clear to me uh, what was the task, uh, how many concurrent users. Oh, has anyone talked about the size of the data or what's the expected number of users using the system? So I got lost, literally. And only later I was able to understand, okay, we need to download our data. All right, cool. So my only recommendation is, I mean, for me particularly, is speak a little bit slow when explaining the task or the system that you want the candidate to design. Everything else was super cool. You really interacted with the candidate a lot, even when he was going absolutely in the wrong direction, trying to bring back to some path that makes sense. So it was quite interesting to see that effort, huge effort.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thanks, Alex. I think that was good feedback.
Anyone else wants to give feedback on how they would have answered this in
Yeah.
like lecture? At least the place where I got stuck, you can give me harsh feedback or critical feedback that I know Alex, you gave me a nice feedback that the place where I got
Yeah.
stuck, I I
I
should.
have some suggestions, but like, yeah, I'll probably give audience first chance. So, Drupad, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, based on however the Praveen did, I mean, what I think is he has a lot of knowledge about different things and all, but he cannot stitch them together properly to make a good design. And that may happen because of like two things, like he doesn't have that ability, or the second thing is you totally misunderstood the problem. And I think the second is more correct. Like you understood the system in a like your understanding of the problem was entirely different, and that's when you started doing this. So as Alex said, I think you should be on the same page with the interviewer's requirement. Then it would have been all nicely worked out, because after you started designing the system at 10:45 mark, that was uh, that was a real discussion should have started a lot earlier, and you took a long detour because you didn't understand the problem. So if we put a more focus on like make sure that we are 100% of sure this is what we need to build, then you would have scored quite well.
Yeah, that's a good feedback. Yeah, I initially I was like posting comments and I took some time to get comments, location by user ID. Instead, I could have just concentrated on, I know you, Shiprasad mentioned download, but I still went into different areas, which I don't need to spend that much, right? I started into like how he can post the request and how much it's going to take for posting, instead of if the requirement is only to get the data, then I could have just I know he mentioned it, but I just would have concentrated on one API and give more time and laser focus on this last part, which I came a little bit late in the game.
Okay. Thanks, Drupad. I think that was good feedback. Praveen, you were trying to say something, the other Praveen.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of agree with Drupad. The
Mm-hmm.
when actually, so we almost spent around 30 minutes, and actual problem discussion was started after that. Before that, we were going in the wrong direction only. So I think there was a confusion for the Praveen initially. I think he did not interpret the requirement correctly, what is expected.
Thanks, Praveen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is that it's easy in hindsight. Like,
And sorry to interrupt you. One more suggestion here.
Mm-hmm.
So, Praveen, whatever you speak, everything makes sense, and interviewer actually interpret in a different way. So one example I can recall that when you were talking that, and sometimes, I mean, if you don't speak precise, you waste your own time. So when you are talking here with the database and you are naming all the databases, HBase, Cassandra, MongoDB. So I mean, I didn't find, I mean, that information was fruitful here or make any sense, or interviewer will get any point from there.
Okay. Thanks, Praveen.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Vikrant, you are trying to say something?
I mean, I'm just trying to gather from Sri Prasad. So, could I have started this like you already have a Yelp system, and I mean, either you are using some Kafka or some database, and from there, this data is coming back to some batch processing or some kind of queue or either a database. Can this kind of thing be started like this?
Oh, okay.
I mean, this was not a real-time system, of course. The customer did not wanted a real-time data. So that's why I'm asking this kind of question.
So yeah, I mean, like you were saying, the discussion started like I think, okay, I think what you're trying to point out is like Praveen did not take the leverage of the existing Yelp system, right?
Yeah or no? I
For
mean, I'm not
design.
going into that direction. I'm
Mm,
trying to come up with a solution because since we reached to some point, but it was a little bit later. So I'm trying to come up with something just in my mind to start with.
Okay.
So is it a fair assumption to take that, okay, your Yelp system is
Yes,
having
yes.
half cut?
Yeah, that's a fair assumption. That I think that's what Sri Prasad mentioned when asking the question. So Yelp system existed. This is a new feature you're designing.
Okay,
So
so I can pick from a database, micro batch, some
mhm.
data and send it to my database, or put it into a Kafka queue or something and then start processing on the top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Mm.
point. I missed. I should have asked, right? How is the current system working, or then we can just pivot a little bit from there
Yeah.
and to get
Yeah.
back our data.
Just
That
a thing, like
yeah,
Praveen, like Sri Prasad might not tell how the current system looks like, but you need to make some certain assumptions that this
yeah,
exists, this exists. So yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and
I have
if
some feedback around that also. Like, yeah, Vikrant, you have another thing to
yeah,
say?
so I think in the chat we were discussing about the S3 storage. So
Mm-hmm.
once the storage has been placed, I mean, even if it goes to a third database, which I was thinking in my mind, like this all data we can micro batch or something, or at the end of the day, do a batch processing for the entire day and put it into a database. And on that, we can run some kind of queries to generate the data for the customer. I mean, it could be a zip for a day if it is a user which is using a system too much. So every day zip, or we can do a big zip and send him the entire data, or go ahead and download it kind of thing.
No, it's not just one day. I think it's about all time data, right, Sri Prasad? I think that's how I understood.
Correct. That is correct.
All of his data, not just
Right.
one day. It could be gigabytes also.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that if it is like
Yeah.
10 GB data, so we can
Mm.
we can batch it like 1 GB, 1 GB kind of. I mean, so that
Yeah,
is,
it's up to your solution how you give them the download option, but like it has to be together. Like he doesn't. I mean, like we should not give a customer experience, from my understanding. Like download, like there are so many links. You should not give him like 100 links asking to download like different segments.
So
That's a
I think,
bad customer experience, I think.
Vikrant, from what I understood, what you're saying is we can zip the file for like one day, and then if later the customer comes up, we can get that data and then from the zip file and give it to him, and can store it somewhere else for easy retrieval. Is my understanding correct?
no, not really. I mean, because we already have the data in the system. So say Yelp is running for last 10 years, you have the customer data for last 10 years, but you are looking for last 1 year's data. So, I mean, for last 1 year, I can keep it into my database. And for the now upcoming from today onwards, whatever data will be coming, that will be all real time coming to my database. And when the customer asks me a query, then I will generate based on that. But that data could be huge, and that should be broken down into some segments, quarterly or yearly or whatever.
He may never come to ask also. So you keeping the data in, duplicating the data, keeping it in another place. Uh, I I don't know whether it would be helpful, because if you have like I said, like a huge user who's posting so many things, you're going to duplicate the data, keeping it in say 1 year of data itself, keeping it in some other database and hoping that he would come and ask for the data. He might not even ask for the data. So
yeah, so this is where I think this query should be run on data warehouse, not onto the real-time databases what we have. I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking in that direction.
That's another option. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like we normally don't try to keep all the old data in the live databases, right? Like there are some archive kind of database. You may move to some cold storage instead of keeping in the.
Oh, so you're not telling to duplicate the data. You're just telling to archive the data.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you will preemptively archive all the data and then keep it ready for all users, and when they ask it, you'll immediately give, or what are you saying?
So basically, so last 1 year's data, I will be pulling it out from the whatever system it is, and based on user ID, I will be putting it in some kind of database or something. And
Yeah, are you saying like, is it like when the user makes a request, are you going to do that like in 1 year increments, or are you going to pre-compute for all the users?
I mean, pre-computing for all users will be too tough. But
yeah, it'll be
it,
too much of storage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we do is, for some of the systems, right, if the data is more than 3 years, right, we will archive the data. So, and only 3 years active data we have. More anything greater than 3 years, we archive it. And if at all someone requests for that, then it will be like a 1-2 hours to get the retrieve the data back or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we also do.
Okay. So in that scenario, right, we will always have this hot data, which is 3 years, for which our services will go gather. And for the past data, it will always be, we have to retrieve the data first, because maybe it's already in the tape or something, and then stood it up, and then run the service, and then put it back.
Got it.
I do have a quick question for Sri Prasad. So,
Yeah.
Sri Prasad, so what was the intent for this problem? So my understanding from this problem that, I mean, you collecting the data is not a big deal. So I believe that you wanted to understand the system and the failure scenario, and you raised that point that, like, when you gather the data, system fail, node go down, how will you actually take care of that? Whether you will start the process again or make a replica for your downloaded data already. So that
Yeah.
you wanted to, I mean, expecting something like that, or?
Yeah, I was thinking
I
of
think,
go ahead.
yeah, my interpretation is he wants to design this whole download path flow, reusing the existing system or like services or data, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the end result will be, say, like, user will get his own his or her data, but designing that system so that what will be the pain point in that system, where we have to pay close attention.
Do you mean like his questions around like on different single points of failure or bottlenecks, or
Yeah,
I would let
service
Shri
failure, or
Prasad answer.
so like you have two service, and one service and one service downloaded the data for, say, like, commands, but media service failed. So will you start the job for that user again, or you will persist, or wherever you downloaded the data for the user commands, that node go down? So will you download it again, or will you actually add some sort of a mechanism to replicate that user data? Like what MapReduce does.
Okay, I didn't catch the last part. So the question was, once you have downloaded, do you allow downloading again, or like?
No, when some intermediate service downloaded some partial data.
That's your design, right? Like if how you want to handle. So like, let's say you have 10 different dependent services to fetch the data, and if you fetch successfully from few of them and there are still some remaining, so then like your design should be able to fetch only the pending ones, not the all the 10 again. So it's going to cause unnecessary resource wastage if you try again, like the ones that are already tried.
Yeah, and another thing is that where will you keep this data? Will you move this data from here and there?
Yeah, it's depend on like how, yeah, if the as an example again, right? Like if you decide to zip it, and how big that can zip be, like do you support, yeah, you can even zip the full gigabyte files also, that's not an issue. Like if that's your solution, then you still need to gather all the data in one place where you will be able to run the zip process and zip it and give one file link to the user to download. That's my interpretations. Sri Prasad, like if you had something else in mind, like as an interviewer, you can
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I was trying to allow for a feature design which uses an existing backend system that Yelp already has, and leveraging that to allow a user to download his data. How the user downloads the data and how the system decides to download the data, it's totally up to the system designer. One way is like you mentioned, zip the file and give it to him as one big zip file. Another way could be zip of zip files. There are many points where it could fail while stitching. Like you said earlier, one of the step fails. Are you going to retry the entire system for all the other steps which succeeded, or are you going to just do one step that failed?
Are you
Another
actually
way.
expecting?
Sorry, go ahead.
So what were you actually expecting from this? Is it like what answer were you expecting?
Answer
In
as
terms of
in
like,
the design where you stitch the services together so that there is no point of failure, or there is less point of failure would always happen. But what negotiations would you do to make sure that system is scalable? Like for example, one thing which we did not cover is a bot which tries to do the same thing again and again, again and again, every 100 seconds. That would put a lot of load on the system if we were not doing it in an asynchronous manner, a completely different way. You like block it by hey, you have downloaded in the past 1 hour or past 7 days, now you wait for another 7 days to do uh, for the zip file. Another point of failure will be maybe you pull all the data, put it into one common location, and then have another service get all the data from this common location, zip it into a file, and then send it. So that you mark, okay, I've completed this step, you have completed second step, I've completed third step. If one of the steps fails, then you only retry that step. Once everything is completed, you call another service to say, hey, all the steps are completed, here is the location where you need to fetch the data. You fetch the data, you now do the zip after all the completion of fetching is completed. Like after all those things are fetched, then you start another service which to fetch the data. Until
so
then, you have one service to locate. Sorry, go ahead.
it's more like an orchestration engine, right? So you have an
Yeah.
orchestration service which will actually keep track of one. So you have a um, orchestration service which will actually call three services, right? First service will be to get data into common location, right?
Yeah.
And then second so this is only one service, this is orchestration service. And next one will be to stitch the data,
Yeah.
and third will be to send the
export
data, right?
export the data to
Yeah,
the user, and each of them has a dependency. Like you
yeah.
can't switch the data if you don't get the data, you can't export the data if you don't switch the data. So like that, you are now creating different microservices which you can track independently, and you don't have to retry if one of them fail. If the stitch data like for example, fail to stitch the data, but all the data is in that one common location, you don't need to do the step one. You just need to retry the stitch the data together once more to, and it can track its own system variables. Like, okay, I have tried to this is the common location for this user ID in its own service, in its own database, and you don't even, the first step does not need to be even aware of that. As soon as you pass it on to the second service, it gets the data, it associates UUID with the location, and it tries to retry in case it fails. Similarly, exporting the user data. The ideal way would be just get an email ID of the user and say, hey, I'm going to give you a location where all this data is there, and I'm going to send an email later, so that the user doesn't have to like wait. He can just get a URL whenever the system is ready to give the data. Another service which keep tracks of how many times the user has requested this. Like for example, if you have like a user which is uploaded a lot of times and you are going on serving this one user, it's going to strain the system. You need some kind of a rate limiter in between. Similarly, exporting the user location. The email ID is invalid. You are trying to email 4 times and you say, okay, this is wrong. I'm not going to try it again. I'm going to let the user know, hey, I don't have a way to reach you. Let me know what is your latest email ID. Worst case, this user is not even uploaded anything. Immediately you can send the user that, hey, you didn't upload anything, I'm going to return all the data. Like these are the things which I would assume even before like the discussion of even design to talk about. What is the format? How are you getting the data? What are the format in which we can steps in which we can chop our services? That's what I would be hoping like an interview would go forward. And again, then talk about different scalability concern. What happens if one thing fails? What happens if you fetch the data from a DB, the DB record fails? Do you have a mechanism to retry? Do you have a mechanism to make sure that one point of the service is not your chokehold, where if that service failed, the entire system is now on hook? Yeah. I hope
Yeah.
I answered your question. Let me know.
Yeah, I think this is a big plus one. Like this is what like even I was thinking about. Like I hope like this answers Praveen's question also.
So does this
Thank
good
you.
like orchestration engine will take the user ID and will respond with a URL ID or something, and then it will have multiple steps in it, and then in that the format and everything will be decided. So I think if at all I would have just concentrate on this one
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yes,
whole
yes.
thing.
Yeah, this is what like which you could have discussed before starting the high level design, and this would have like given the picture set right. Like
Yeah, I yeah I digressed many places, but now I think I get that question a little bit better, and I would
yeah,
have
yeah, part of the thing is like yeah, I mean like I'm giving my feedback also. Yeah, so just like Alex said, like initially like Sri Prasad spoke little fast, so next time when he repeated, like I got the question, but when you captured the requirements, you didn't keep the keyword like download all my data. That's a main key feature. So I didn't see like it's being captured correctly, like in your, that's where like you got confused and you got diverted and trying
yeah,
to, you captured the wrong use cases which led you to a different direction of the design. So
yeah post I should say. So all instead of being as a user, I want
uh,
to
download all my data. Yeah, I mean like that data is whatever the comments, videos or posts or
that
whatever.
is already there in the system, right? This is already there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the main thing. And like I think you haven't, it appears to me you haven't done like system designs like recently, right? So that's why like that could be, and you picked up on spot, so that could be one thing. um yeah, so I think high level, even I was imagining like what Sri Prasad said, like once you ask like download all my data, you ask for an email ID and you just tell them like you will email them when that data is prepared and will send. a link to download it. So that's how even like I imagine. So, but like on the feedback, like on the design block diagram, I think this data estimates and all you could have skipped if you would have concentrated on the last 4 points that you discussed first.
Yep. Okay.
And on the design as such, like I don't like think this is a good place where you put APIs like every like when you put an API, it's kind of becoming an synchronous, right? So
Yes.
for this purpose, so this can be everything asynchronous. So
Only
that's one.
there'll be only one API, but everything else can be asynchronous. One API that I want data. That's the only thing from a customer
Yeah,
point.
that's just receiving. Yeah, that's
Just
just
receiving that
receiving the
thing.
request. Yeah, correct.
Everything else we can actually do it in the offline. We can actually use a pipeline also. Like SSIS or there's so many third-party pipelines we can use to get different teams, right? The back teams, they use for analytic processing. They do similar things. We don't call it reviews, but they have different ways to get the data from the system. So different pipelines.
Yeah. Another thing is like you have to assume that like all the systems already exist, right? Like the system which maintains the comments, like there is a service which gives to you the comments, or there is a there may be already services which there is already a place where videos are stored. Like all those databases, since the LP is existing, this is
Yeah.
just a new feature you are designing. So you're probably asking new this is kind of a new request to those existing systems, so which you can add another like asynchronous queue based flow. You send a request, that guy responds by sending like you give a location and you send the request for that user ID, and that existing server uploads the data offline whenever they're ready and to the location you ask for. So once you, but you have to maintain the status of each component for whom you receive the data, like a status. Once you receive the data from all the dependent services, then you just go and run the zip process, which can be another async process. And once that is ready, um, you just give the download URL link to the, you can attach it in an email, and there is an email service which triggers that. So
Yeah, that is good.
yeah, that's how like I envision. So I think maybe like, yeah, you have a lot of knowledge, but like I mean, like coming to the interviews, like since you have limited time, you have to focus like first main thing is requirements. If you don't, even if you spend more time in the requirements, you can cut short in estimations. You can just yeah, again I forgot another point on estimations. Your estimates are very lavish, so you are assuming that like the person who uploads the large data as a average. So not many people actually upload the videos, right? Like out of 10, I think maybe 2 or 3 might upload.
Yes.
But you are assuming that everybody does that and you are taking that as average, like 200 MB. But that's not the reality, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's another thing. So you can cut short, like if you spend more time in requirements, you can cut short and get to high level block diagram that will set you the focus correctly.
And then we can again go back to add functional, non-functional, and other things as we.
Yeah, I
You
think I got confused. Like I thought like you, though you were documenting or like after discussing the estimates, I thought you were going to high level design. Then like because you are discussing on similar aspects, and then you went back to non-functional. I didn't catch that point. So
Yeah, I
I
jumped.
thought
I remembered something about you know what we need to add for scalability or something else. And
yeah, because that's already, I think, around 30 minutes time, you're going back to non-functional requirements. So it's part of requirements thing, right? Even non-functional. So That's another small thing. Yeah, but like otherwise, yeah.
Nagar, you done?
Yeah, I am done. Asim, you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of the comments which people have given, but I want to give very general things which could help in an interview and not many. So I know most of us, we do software engineering, do day-to-day coding, design, but coming to system design, interview is a different landscape where the time is limited, let's say 40 to 45 minutes, and every second matters. So we need to train our thoughts in in a way where we can be more productive in the interview. And I just posted a link which we did a while back in one of our sessions, and there is a 9-step process, like things which you could think about, like play back the question, repeat the question, and confirm the requirements. Uh, there is a 9-step process the link which I have shared, and so here one suggestion for Shri Prasad also. Uh, I have seen interviewers, they draft the question in a text and also send it like on a chat or something. So, so as an interviewer, we don't want to, uh, we don't want that a candidate get confused with something, because that would not help me in terms of if the candidate gets confused. So better if there's a write up, send it on a chat, ask the candidate to read it, because these days most of the interviews are happening virtual only, and it is going to happen like this for a while. So send it to the interviewer, ask the interviewer to read, and then start. So in that way, interviewer candidate also get more clarity in terms of, and in the start, candidate could be nervous also and might miss a point. We don't want to we want to avoid that situation. We want to take out best of the candidate, and for the candidate, it's better to play back the question and see what's going on. And I've seen not all the time we are doing a full-fledged system design. For example, there could be a question, make a Facebook timeline or Yelp, but there could be situations like this where we are not building the entire system, we are building a feature of the system. It could be like you have a database, and now you are making a feature to take a backup of your database, or we are just building the mem cache or a cache, which is we could be used in a full-fledged system design, but now we are just focusing on very particular problem. And in that case, things could change, the requirements flow could change, the estimations could change, and how we come to the high level design. But in any interview, what interviewer would not, I think, pass the candidate if he doesn't see high level design, deep dives, bottlenecks, and few other things. So if you are planning to do anybody a system design interview in a month or 6 months, I think this our channel is the best place where you can see where you are, how you can train your thoughts. Because I know, like most of us, like we are doing a fantastic job at work, but this is a different paradigm. How we think, how we speak, how we manage time comes to, and we don't want as a candidate, I don't want, because let's say I get a really difficult interviewer, I don't want to lose my chance. So how I do all these things, I think matters a lot. So yeah, so I just put that link, so if you get time, you look for the steps and see how you can do better. And there is no shortcut. We all need to do some practice, do mock interviews. That's only the mantra or key for success of the system design interview.
Yeah, thanks, Asim. I forgot to mention about first Sri Prasad, the feedback. So I agree, like he was trying to speak a bit fast, like, but like I think as a candidate we should always push, but like giving a write up, I know it always helps. It sets the mind to focus. So I think that'll help. as an interviewer to get what we want. So that could be one of the things to speed up. But not all interviewers give that. I don't know even nowadays, but I don't.
Yeah,
For
not all, but I think if I am an interviewer, I would try to do that. So I don't want, like, if Shri Prasad is hiring for somebody for his team, so that's what, like, let's take best of the candidate and let's try to avoid these
Yes,
distractions where
yes.
because requirement was not clear and I couldn't get the best of the candidate.
Hmm. And another thing I felt is like Shri Prasad, you are trying to give too much hints, like as though you're giving your suggestion to the candidate. I felt like that in few places. So, but normally we don't. You just give a problem, like you make the candidate understand the problem and see what he thinks about it. If you give your thought process of like say use async here or this,
Mm.
then like you are almost hinting the solution directly to them and see what is thinks about it, or I don't know what was the intent there.
I think
So
if we give too much hints, we
mm,
are diverting the candidate towards
mm,
my own version of solution.
yes, yes,
Rather
yes.
than, let's say, if I'm a seasoned interviewer and I feel like a candidate is drifting away, if I have to do, I would first say, hey, I just want to double check if you get the exact requirements or not. I think my requirements for downloading looks like there is a confusion. Are we on the same page? Just to make sure that by asking a question rather than giving a solution, that just to see that a candidate is actually on the same page or not. And if the candidate is on the same page and still candidate designing something, I won't interrupt. Might be in another path, I could get some better things about the candidate. But if I just try to divert the candidate to my own version or something, it can add more confusions to the candidate. So, and other thing is, in any all these companies like Fang, the first thing they tell in any training session, that we always have to give a best experience for the candidate. So candidate is like customer. So after the interview, candidate should feel better, although he or she couldn't solve the situation or not.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasin. So two things. I wrote the question down on my Sublime, but I didn't post it. But next time I'll make sure that I post it so that the candidate understands it. That's a very good point that you brought up.
Yeah, I think towards the end you were asking the right questions, like, but like a bit earlier, I thought like you were giving hints. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, Sri Prasad. I interrupted.
So yeah, that's like when at certain points I felt like this approach probably won't work, but I try to nudge him towards a solution that might work. Again, that might also have issues, but that might work. But when it was, at least when I was seeing it, I was thinking like, okay, like for example, getting all this data synchronously. I felt like if it that this much of data is there and a synchronous request comes, it's going to time out. And I mentioned like for 2 times also that I fear that it might time out. But when it was clear to me that that's the approach the path was going, I tried to nudge the candidate towards the solution. Again, I want to make sure that with less number of my intervention, he was be able to like design the system uh, and make sure find the pain points, make sure to, that was my intent. But if we feel like, okay, that was too much of handholding, I would try to cut back.
And now look,
Yeah, I was just trying to say, I think I have a very brief point. Like, if I would be interview, I would say like, do you think like synchronous would work? Do you see any issues there? And I think you were doing that, but I'm just giving very general comments for anybody who's doing system design. So basically, it's more like question or challenging the situation, like would the synchronous work? Do you think if this is the situation, and then candidate let candidate answer that. Oh, looks like candidate might say, hey, in the past I did this thing and it worked fine in this situation, and then it would be a new learning for me. But candidate itself can say, oh yeah, looks like synchronous can time out, and I don't see any situation in the past. Another thing which I can think about is asynchronous. Okay, let's do that.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So Shiv Prasad, if at all I would have done this, that would have been better, right? Like just
Done this. What do you mean?
like if I could have just say that orchestration service and then get into that, how are the different methods I would gather the data, and then we could have just went inside one of the methods. I'm just retroactively thinking if I would have gone this method, this route, then our train of thought would have been much more focused, right? Then you can say, okay, there are multiple ways to do it: pipeline approach or API approach, and then you
What
would have.
is the pipeline approach? Is it like an asynchronous messaging you meant here?
Yes, pipeline
Is
approach
it
means you use uh, some like SSIS or some kind of tools, right, to actually read from the queue and do everything, and like um, IBM MQ series or something, right? So it will actually read everything, do everything, and just send it back. Not an API based. It's everything is backend based.
no, that's fine, but like I didn't get the full
Yeah, I
explanation of
also.
that. Like when you say like there is a process which reads from the queue and process, and it
Mm.
has to, after processing, it has to put data somewhere or like pass on to some other queue. So I don't know how like in fully this pipeline thing works. Like maybe we can
Yeah, yeah. Because
just like say,
I think
yeah, because we
I
did
just want
some of
to.
this in pipeline approach for the platform, where the data we used to use pipeline approach for all the synchronous translation. So where we use that is supposing when you're actually opening the keywords or something, right, and you want to put that in the Cosmos DB. So we used to actually just take the data from all the keywords, like you have ads, right? You put like car ads, and this is the ad that I need to show in platform. So you used to take all the data, and the pipeline used to process it and put that in the Cosmos DB, and then any data that it needs to get, it used to asynchronously get that and return that back. And from the search perspective, when the pipeline used to already pre-aggregate all the data, like even before you search for any results, right? The data is all the pipeline already processed for all the data and aggregated it, and all you have to do is search for a keyword, and everything data is already in the hot cache.
yeah, I think the keyword like or the term that you're using may be specific to organization or like if this is like available in Google, like do you want to share some link so that like
Yeah, I will
I
try to.
haven't heard of this term, so I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, I'll try to search for that and send it. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are at 11
Mm,
now. We need
mm,
to wrap
yeah,
up.
I think we all gave feedback. Um, do you want to stop the recording?
Okay,
I think
let
we.
me stop the recording.
Yeah, it looks
Thank you.